Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see you after a 3-week break. Look at how tanned I am. I'm truly relaxed and so happy to see you all again. And I've got Chelsea. I couldn't have a more perfect host for this session. I'm so excited about everything that we're going to talk about. And I think we'll start by just you introducing yourself a little bit, and then we'll go right into your presentation.
No, fantastic. Well, I'm so happy to be here. I know I joined you, I guess it was a year ago, at another coffee chat where we talked about the concept and theory of matrescence. And so I am a licensed clinical social worker over here in the United States. I specifically focus at the intersections of a woman's matrescence, which is her transition into or from woman to mother, as well as patriarchal normative motherhood, which is, as you'll see today, all of the expectations and assumptions, really just this culture in which we are mothering within. And I love doing individual therapy, but really my heart right now is I'm doing a lot of group work because I believe, similarly to what you've created here, that mothers need other mothers, and that is truly that's just where it's at.
Absolutely. It's just so amazing how moms can support each other. And it's a big transition, this becoming a mother and then finding yourself as well. And I feel as a mom, we're always torn in different directions, and we have to be perfect at everything, right? We have to be the perfect mom, but we also have to be an accomplished career woman. Or we want that for ourselves as well. It's not just society putting it on us. It's the expectations that we have of ourselves as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Why I love this discussion today about mothering in a patriarchy and what is expected of us. And I'm really excited to learn more about from you. Sorry, I'm going to put you on speaker view so that in the video we'll be able to see your presentation properly.
Wonderful.
Go right ahead. And mummies,
okay.
While Chelsea is screen sharing, this works very much like it always does. We're super, responsive to your questions. So put them in the chat. Let us know if you want to raise your hand. If it pertains to what Chelsea is talking about, I'll ask the question right away, and otherwise we'll park it for later, but we'll definitely want to answer your questions on this call. Perfect.
Okay, so can you see this?
You're all set.
Okay, all right, wonderful. And also I want to apologize. It's 10 o'clock at night here. So if my words don't come as smoothly or anything of that nature, I apologize.
For us.
No, I'd love this, and any opportunity I get to further support moms. Again, this just makes my day. So I'm glad to be here. All right. So as we begin, I would love to know if any of you feel comfortable to share. You can either unmute or put it in the chat. And likewise, if you don't want to, if your hands are full, etc., I understand as well. But your name, where you are in your motherhood journey, if you're pregnant, or how far along postpartum you are, how many children, etc. And then this is a super vulnerable question, but why did you feel called to attend this morning's chat, or even sharing maybe your biggest pain point in motherhood? So maybe just giving a couple minutes to see if anyone wants to share, and if not, we'll keep going.
Amazing. And you can put this in the chat, and Chelsea, you can see that, right? You see the chat?
Yes.
Perfect. Don't be shy. As far as I know, we won't see this in the video, so your chat won't be seen at a later stage, but do share with us. It would be really nice, and we can keep everything anonymous as well. We don't need to name names.
That's fair. You can leave the names part out. That's totally very good point.
Okay.
It's okay. No worries. No worries. We'll keep
people might
okay, there's one.
Yeah, okay. Let's just move on.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. We will keep going.
Here we go. We have someone.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Ready to pop. I
Um,
worry about the right balance when it comes to feeding. I'm a picky eater, etc. Sugar versus organic. Oh, that's very fair, right? There's so many decisions that we have to make. And as you'll see throughout this activity and hopefully this whole presentation, it can feel like there is a right decision, right? So these are loaded questions. These are loaded decisions. We have to make the right choice. It can feel oftentimes. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. So this is a group activity. If you can participate, I think you'll get a lot out of it, hopefully. And if not, again, that is okay. Okay. So in the chat, if you don't mind writing, who is a good mother? And I used good mother in quotes. What does she do? And what does she look like? So you can finish this sentence. A good mom, dot, dot, dot. Oh, gosh. Sorry. Did I just do that? Did anyone else see that? Sorry, that scared me. I don't know how I did that. I apologize. This artificial intelligence thing is next level. It's running circles around me. I apologize.
it looked amazing. We had some fireworks. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and as we kind of have this conversation, if there's anything that you can think of, usually when I do this in person, I hand out Post-its, and so people can write like one description at a time, and then at the end we just have, well, actually, here's an example. They're all messy, but you can see like there's so many. We just have so many Post-its describing what a good mom is. Okay, so I'm just going to back up, and from the intro, I'm taking away from one of you that decision making has to make the right decision. I think could be one.
Yeah.
That being present, being available, emotionally attuned to our children looks like that could be another one. Nurturing, always there at the ready. A good mother is someone who loves her child and tries her best given any circumstance. A good mom focuses on the needs of her children and her child and doesn't compare and judge herself all the time. She is loving and nurturing, responsible for her child's needs. She is someone who cares for her children. She listens to them. She raises them to grow into decent human beings.
Really good contributions there. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm curious as like, and you don't have to answer this out loud, just you can reflect for yourself or share. When you hear some of these, what's the emotional reaction you have? How do you feel when you kind of hear some of that listed out? Okay, we're going to keep going. Yeah, overwhelmed. Most definitely. Maybe nervous also. Like that's a lot. There's a lot to do. Maybe pressure, a bit stressed. Yeah, the standard is high. Absolutely. So let's talk about this for just a minute. Oh, yeah, that it good in theory, but hard in practice. Oh, these are awesome. Thank you all so much for participating. This is fantastic. Let's see. Should come natural, but doesn't always. That's a big one. Sometimes very alone. Yep. anxiety, worry, overwhelmed. Yeah, this is, you can feel it's like we're in pressure cookers all the time, right? Like there's so much that we're always thinking about. That mental load is real, et cetera. And we'll talk a little bit more about all of this, but it definitely contributes to these feelings of isolation and loneliness, anxiety, worry, overwhelm, all that you've shared. Okay. And feel free, like you said, to continue in the chat. And I know you're helping me. So if there's anything we need to stop or pause on,
Absolutely.
here. Okay, so becoming a mother, also known as your matrescence, is a naturally disorienting, challenging, and difficult transition, as is any life transition that you could think of. So whether it was going off to college or getting married, maybe getting divorced, maybe the death of a loved one, anything like that, any life transition is naturally a time of hardship and challenge and growth and beauty and joy, right? A transition in life is full and inherently full of these ups and downs. So becoming a mother is supposed to be hard, naturally a little hard, right? But this hard, the hard that we were just talking about, the hard that contributes to this intense pressure and all of these expectations and this overwhelm and burnout, that's a different kind of hard. So we're going to talk about that kind of hard. Sorry, I have to figure out how to move some of these. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about patriarchal normative motherhood. So we become mothers within a greater context. We become mothers within motherhood. And I've capitalized it there on purpose. When it's capitalized like that, we are really referring to it as the institution of motherhood, which is socially and culturally defined and constructed. So this, think of it either as an umbrella or like this ocean that we're all in is motherhood. It's made up of all of these assumptions and expectations, ideologies, and norms of which make up a good mother. Motherhood varies from generation to generation, with each generation having their own set of rules to abide by if they want to earn the title of good mother. Many maternal scholars will say that motherhood is oppressive, and normative motherhood further oppresses those based on identities, so race, class, ability, sexual orientation, etc. So when we're talking about patriarchal normative motherhood, I think I'll talk about this in my next slide. I think the biggest takeaways are that even if you don't necessarily yourself sit here and say, yes, I'm trying to be a perfect mom. Like if that isn't even something you would acknowledge or agree that that's your goal, this still is so deeply part of our experience, right? We're not necessarily conscious of how hard we're trying, of how much we're working to earn the title of being a quote good mom. But it's there. This is an inherent part of our experience when we become mothers, which is why I think this conversation is so critical. Any thoughts, questions so far, or keep going?
We don't have anything to add, but so I think let's keep going for a while.
Perfect. So there are many expectations, assumptions, and norms that make up patriarchal normative motherhood. Largely, though, it is the good mother myth and intensive mothering ideology. So if we think back to the activity that we just did, you named several of the assumptions and these expectations that make a good mother. So some additional ones sometimes that will be listed, I can even just pull from my list right here. Being able to handle and navigate the invisible load, being okay with the invisible load, the traditional gender roles in families, not complaining about your role of mother, being really grateful that you are a mother, someone who is emotionally attuned to their children, someone who's able to teach them their manners, right versus wrong, and boundaries. They're always helping their kids with whatever, whether it's their homework or potty training, they're always available to their children. So it's all of these expectations, all of these assumptions in which really deeply influence and impact our experience of what it means to become a mother. Okay, so I'm going to define for you now intensive mothering, very specifically what it is. And as I describe it or you read it, I'm curious if you can hear yourself reflected in any of these. So a mother should be completely fulfilled by her role as a mother. The biological mother is the best mother for her children. A mother should give of herself to her role as mother 24/7. A mother should spend copious amounts of time, energy, and money on her children. And a mother should refer to the experts for all of her mothering choices and decisions. So I'm going to just sit here for a moment and kind of let you think about any of this. And do you see yourself reflected in any of this? Do you feel that you are, maybe denying the harder parts of what it means to be a mother because a good mother loves her role as mother? Or do you feel, I know someone put in the chat early on, that you want to be a present mom, right? So maybe some of this being available 24/7 to them, giving all of your time and energy over to your role and identity and that of mother and how you care for your children. But then that feeling of maybe having to return to work, right? If you go to work, then you're not available to your children 24/7. And what does that say about you, right? Are you still a good mom if you choose to go to work? Or maybe, right? Maybe we are a good mom because we choose to go to work and we're showing our children what it means to balance a career and be ambitious in that way, right? Like there's so much of motherhood, especially within patriarchal normative motherhood, is a catch-22, or it's contradicting itself. I see here some added to be a conscious parent, not getting angry, to be gentle, encouraging, and loving. That's a big one, right? The ask of what that means of us to show up and remain calm and grounded. And, as our children are having tantrums or as our children are making choices that really scare us, right? If our ability, it's almost this expectation of us that we won't have an experience of being scared or overwhelmed in those moments, that somehow we as mothers and the parents more broadly, but as mothers, because largely the work of mothering falls on mothers, is that we should almost deny ourselves what our experience is so that we can be the best we need to be for our children. It's tough to juggle it all and fulfilling the expectations of all around us. As you said, different generations and concepts of parenting and mothering, cultural differences too. And you can't be a mother part-time. Yeah, right? You can never turn it off. Like even if if you go to a yoga class or if you go to, if you work outside the home, right? Like that mental load, that invisible load that you're carrying, you're working double shift. You're just always on. We can't turn off what it means to be a mother. Most definitely. Something just to touch on here, because I know I briefly alluded to it. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but maybe you felt judged by your own mother or maybe your mother-in-law, or maybe not judged, but maybe they've like asked you, hey, why do you do X, Y, and Z, right? They're not understanding. It's really important to remember that when that happens, it's because your mom or your mother-in-law is wearing the glasses of what it meant to be a good mother in her generation, right? She hasn't taken those off yet. So she's projecting what society and culturally was expected of her maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago. That can sometimes just be helpful if you ever get into those, miscommunications or feel misunderstood, just to remember that we all generationally have our own kind of glasses on of what it means to be a good mother. Yeah, that one's huge, right? Being judged for living a different lifestyle than previous generations. Absolutely. So not feeling maybe accepted, understood, feeling almost like you have to defend yourself for some of the choices you're making. Most definitely. Anyone else have any? Oh, perfect. I feel like the modern mom expectation is more tough than previous generations. Needs to be all the mothering duties, thin, beautiful, successful in career, rich and woke, emotionally mature. Okay, you've nailed it, because research shows and suggests that mothering today is the hardest time to be a mother in all of history. So you are correct that your instinct of, I think this is harder than it was for my mom. It's really true. As well as it takes more time, energy, and sorry, here we are. This is my 10 o'clock at night brain. Time, energy, I'm just going to read my own notes, and money to raise one child today than it did to raise 4 children back in the 60s. I mean, when I learned that, it just blew my mind, right? But that shows the amount of stress and the amount of pressure that we are under as mothers today. And I feel like even if you fit perfectly the definition of intensive mothering, yep, this is so true, then you get judged for being too present and not fitting into the other model of having a fulfilling life for yourself. It is also very contradictory. Yeah, that's it, right? Within patriarchal normative motherhood, you can't win, right? There's always something else you could be doing, something better you should be doing, something more you should be doing. And if you're doing something one way, it's not the right way, even though it is the right way, according to certain people. So again, this idea of referring to the experts really does influence us, right? Because that on one hand, we hear that mothering should be instinctual and natural to us, right? A good mother is natural. A good mother trusts her instinct. But on the other hand, a good mother is going to refer to the doctors and the experts and the psychologists and read all the books. Just like in that, right? There's no winning that. So I think this idea that within patriarchal normative motherhood, everything does feel contradictory, is spot on. If you're interested in reading more about intensive mothering, the theorist who coined it is Sharon Hayes, and her book, The Cultural Contradictions of Motherhood, it's from, I think, the 70s or 80s. Oh, I'm blanking now. It might even be early 90s. But it's fascinating how it's still so applicable to us today. Yeah, and the influence of social media, right? There's always someone we can compare ourselves to. And I think you're right. I think that it's highlighted what it means to be a good mother. It almost puts like this ideal picture is now there, and it feels more attainable, right? Like, oh, if we do those things, if we buy matching outfits for ourselves and our children, if we can get, cook the organic and homemade meals, if we can, breastfeed specifically our children, if we can do X, Y, and Z, then maybe I'll finally feel as if I'm a good mother, right? So there definitely also is an undertone of having to earn the title of being a good mother, of feeling worthy of it, which also is defeating so much of the time. It kind of keeps us on this. A lot of the mothers I support will say it keeps me on this, just this hamster wheel of I'm always chasing my tail. There's always something more I could be doing, and I can never rest, right? Okay. So, sorry, just moving the chat. So what is the impact of mothering within patriarchal normative motherhood? So it's never feeling good enough. It's feeling as if you are always failing or never doing it right. And again, if you are a mother that potentially, or that has a career in addition to the role of mothering, this idea of failing. I mean, I think mothers feel it no matter if they work outside the home or not, or just only work within the home. But it might feel different. It might feel as if you're failing at your career, you're failing as a mother, right? You can't be that good mother who's available 24/7 if you choose or don't necessarily have a choice in this, but you work outside the home. So these feelings of, again, you're never doing it right, feeling overwhelmed, burned out, and exhausted, feeling a loss of self. The autonomous self has a shelf life. I think someone shared this at the beginning, right? Like, there's that you just kind of lose yourself when you become a mother. And some of this, again, some of losing yourself is natural. It's part of any transition in life. So in one's matrescence, feeling lost is a beautiful thing. It's hard, but it's part of your evolution of self. But when you feel lost under the umbrella of patriarchal normative motherhood, it is one in which you're like, oh, my ability to attain any autonomous self, my ability to feel like a woman, my ability to feel like a wife or a partner or have a career or hobbies, like that's not appropriate for me because I should be focused on being a mother. So it's a different sense of a loss of self. Again, with mom guilt, and I would even go so far as to say mom shame. So the difference between guilt and shame, I'm certain a lot of you know this already, but mom guilt is the behavior, right? So it's I did something bad or I did something wrong. So an example could be, you forgot to RSVP to a birthday party and you're like, oh, shoot, that was a big mistake. Like you might feel guilty about that, right? But shame is I am bad. Right? It's this inherent lack of worthiness around who you are, that your core sense of self is bad. So a lot of moms at one time or another do feel like I am a bad mom. So I think mom shame is something we need to be talking a lot more about. Mom rage is definitely also a significant symptom of patriarchal normative motherhood. And specifically mom rage, many human beings, all human beings experience anger. It's a very healthy emotion, but mom rage more specifically is referring to being under-resourced, unsupported, unseen, unheard, not having systems in place to support us, these intense expectations and assumptions, the invisible load, the gender roles. Mom rage is a reaction to all of that. So that's what differentiates it from any other kind of rage, right? We don't hear like dad rage. We hear mom rage. I felt mom rage and it scared me. I'm curious if you feel comfortable to share. It's a vulnerable question, but you already were so beautifully vulnerable. If you don't mind sharing what scared you about it. I think that's so relatable, and it is a scary feeling for so many because, again, right? Good moms don't feel angry. Good moms don't have mom rage.
Yeah, when I felt that, like, I could tell that it is not just being angry, right? Like, that is like a even deeper and sense of rage. And I felt like it's almost like okay, yes, one, I did feel like I was unseen, unheard, but I felt collectively for all the mothers out there. Like if I'm feeling that way, I'm sure other mothers felt that way as well. And then I thought back about maybe my ancestors, my mom, my grandmother. So, I was just feeling collectively for everyone. And I did not know how to deal with it. That's why it scared me.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think you've summarized the collective experience of mom rage, right? It is tapping into, you said it so beautifully, it is tapping into that shared experience of rage for all moms, right? If motherhood is oppressive, it's not just oppressive in the year 2024, it's been oppressive since the beginning of time, right? We have made strides in how we treat women and how we, treat mothers, but there's still a long way to go. And surely, again, looking at all the other identities of race, class, gender, sexual orientation, ability, etc., oppression is still very much a thing. And it's through generations. So you're right. When you experience that mom rage, you're tapping into not just the collective of the year 2024, but you're also tapping into your lineage of what it's felt like to be oppressed and discriminated and unheard and unsupported and minimized and at times even erased, depending on your identity. Thank you for sharing that. Comparison to others is definitely another impact of mothering within patriarchal normative motherhood. So you'll see, right, whether it's on social media, like we talked about, where you're comparing yourself to somebody who's doing it better or who's smarter than you, or has more money than you, or looks to get more together than you, or has the time to care for themselves more than you do. It's on social media, but it's also very much when we're one-on-one, right? Or we're in a group setting at the library. We're constantly kind of like looking around, and as oh, I'm going to forget who, but there's a theorist who says mothers really do police each other, like harder than anyone else. We are hardest on ourselves and each other. And patriarchal normative motherhood almost breeds that within us. Feeling scared to be vulnerable, right? So there's this idea of the mask of motherhood, which means that we all have to put on our masks and show up to one another. Within motherhood is, oh, we love this. This is fantastic. This is everything I've ever wanted. I love every minute of it. It's so fulfilling, etc. So it can really be scary to take that mask off and say, whoa, like it isn't all roses and unicorns. Like it's hard for me at times, and I do have moments of mom rage, and I don't love the work of mothering. Like I love being a mother, but like, I could use a break sometimes, right? Like it's scary to be vulnerable. So I'm very appreciative of all of you for stepping in to vulnerability today. And then again, like I've said, further oppression based on all the identities that you have. So I'm curious if you care to share anything else that you can think of as part of your experience that might stem indeed from patriarchal normative motherhood, or any of these that really resonate with you. One thing that drives my rage is how my husband gets a medal from society when he changes a diaper and I haven't slept in over a year.
Love that.
That's so real, right? Like it's our husbands babysit our children, but we are with them just all the time. Like they can take a 30-minute like bathroom breaks, but we take our children with us to the bathroom, right? Our society really does value and see the work of fathering, but then we turned a blind eye to the work of mothering in so many ways. That's the way you said that is so perfect. You should copy and paste that and keep that, because I think you summarized what so many mothers would also feel and do feel. Anyone else? Comparison of my pregnancy experience to my mother's gets me frustrated. Yeah, comparison, right? I mean, like comparison of yourself to any experience. Can you share a little bit more, if you feel comfortable, in what way that feels frustrating to you? The context of our experience is so different. So if I'm understanding what I'm thinking is that you're comparing yourself to your mother's experience of pregnancy. And potentially, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, wishing that yours was more like your mom's. But then it sounds like when you're able to remember how different the context of pregnancy has been for both of you, you're able probably to see with more compassion for yourself the why. Yeah, comparison. There's a quote, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. And I definitely think comparison. Oh, yeah, were you going to share?
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, it's more the other way around, I think, because
Perfect.
I'm away from the UK, which is where I'm from originally, and here in Singapore, a lot hotter climate, less kind of around loved ones. And I think this is my first time child, and she's trying to kind of relate to my experience, but being so far away. And kind of when I describe what's going on for me, it's very different to her experience. And so, yeah, I think she's kind of trying to relate based on what she knows, but it's very different to what I'm experiencing because of the different context. And yeah, that kind of frustrates me that she can't appreciate that we are in different contexts sometimes.
Thank you so much for providing that clarity. I don't ever want to make any assumptions that are incorrect. So thank you for that. Yeah, it sounds like maybe you feel kind of unseen by her. Like there's just almost this like blinding within her of being able to really see and appreciate and hold space for what your experience is. Yeah, I think you're also touching on, right, this desire. We think, I think so many mothers imagine that when they become mothers, they're going to feel so connected to their own mother, right? That they'll have the support of their mother, that she'll show up, you know, in the way that we see in movies and the way that we want her to. And oftentimes in our experience of becoming mothers, we can feel disappointed in that, right? Like we have these sets of expectations that maybe we aren't even conscious of necessarily at the time. But that can definitely be an experience too. Our partners don't understand that sometimes we can have random bursts of strong emotions, and he will ask, where is this coming from? Ugh, yeah. Whether it's the hormones or it's the pressures that we listed out of what it means to be a good mom, or it's the lack of sleep or the lack of me time, right? Like mothers within patriarchal normative motherhood are really usually bubbling at the surface. It doesn't take much to kind of set us off or for us to become more emotive like that. And our partners don't have these, you know, there is no good dad, right? Like there is, to the extent there is of what it means to be a good mother. They don't carry that list of expectations and assumptions, or nor have they internalized it. Maybe it's a better way of saying it, as mothers and as women have, because this is not just a mother thing, right? Like if we have the perfect mother or the good mother and we look back in time at her life, she started off as this good girl, right? Like you were probably a good girl growing up who heard be a good girl, and you knew to fall in line, you knew to be polite, you knew to put other people first, right? So that good girl grew up doing what was expected of her and putting other people first, and most likely becoming a little bit of a perfectionist and a people pleaser. And then when she, you know, she gets married, she goes to school, she gets married, she has kids. Now that pressure is tenfold around what it means to be a good mother or a perfect mother. I see here, the mother wound is triggered all the time when my mom wanted to come and support. It was very intense. Yeah, the mother wound is a really, really big one. And if you're curious, like tracing that back generations too, right? Like looking at your grandmother and your great grandmother, because the mother wound can run really, really deep. the mother-daughter dyad, or that relationship, is one that's very, very unique, and it's often amplified by societal and cultural expectations of what it means to be a girl and a mother and a daughter and a woman. So that would make a lot of sense that your relationship to your mother is like a trigger point for you. Feeling overwhelmed, but also feeling guilty or ashamed of asking for help. That's such a big one. That's such a big one, right? Like, we live in a very hyper independent, very individualistic society, one that deeply values the idea of we should be able to do it all, right? This is something we shouldn't have to ask for help. Asking for help oftentimes is perceived as a weakness. And you know, mothering is something, again, that's supposed to come naturally, etc. So asking for help means that probably there's something wrong with us. So the shame that you mentioned is real. My rage comes from the patronizing looks I get from people when I'm on my own with my 3 kids and constantly being told I need to employ a helper and I'm making my life harder and can't cope on my own. Wow. Yeah, all those comments that you didn't ask for, right? Everybody's opinion. They're not offering to help, but they have an opinion about what you should do. That's so infuriating. Ugh. Well, these are all really hard, but really great examples of what it means to be a mother, mothering within patriarchal normative motherhood. Okay, so now we're probably all feeling a little bit frustrated and down and maybe a little bit hopeless. Like, this is our experience. This is really hard. What did I sign myself up for? I love being a mother, right? I love my children, but this, right? And when I say this, I'm referring to patriarchal normative motherhood. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I signed up for. Is it normal to not know exactly what the triggers for rage? It often comes out of nowhere. Absolutely. Absolutely. Have you done, this is a total side note, have you done a coffee chat on mom rage? Because I would totally love to do something like that if it hasn't been done.
But that's definitely on my list for the next one.
Smart. That's because this is such a huge topic right now. So mom rage, I think that's the part that can feel kind of unruly about it, is that it can just pop up out of nowhere. However, if you take some time reflecting, so like the next time you have a mom rage moment, really get curious about what was happening right before that mom rage moment, and then even looking back at your entire day and maybe even your week. Because quite honestly, it's not usually that you stepped on a Lego and you have a moment of mom rage because of the Lego. It's most likely that the house is a mess. You've done the dishes for the 3rd time in the day. Your child has been screaming. You did not sleep the night before because you were up taking care of them. You haven't eaten, you haven't worked out, you got in a fight with your partner, right? It's usually this huge compilation of things that then it's something so small typically that sets us off. But if you can spend some time tracking any patterns, so if you have like 5 episodes of mom rage over the next week or over the next couple of days or over the next month, whatever that time frame might look like for you, you might start to be able to dial in on what some of those precursor events are that contribute to the mom rage. And then you might know, right? Like on the days in which the house is a complete mess and that narrative of, the perfect mom would have a clean house is really loud, and I haven't slept in 3 days, and I haven't showered, and I know when things like that are happening to me that I'm more likely to have a mom rage moment. So while you might not be able to identify specifically what the triggers are, I think you can over time kind of build a map for yourself. And then through that, identify kind of some protective factors or things that you need to put in place to help maybe minimize the amount of rage moments that you have. But also on that note, rage is not a bad thing, right? I think that it gets a bad rap when anger is a really useful tool for us as long as we know how to handle it in healthy, constructive ways. And as long as we honestly work to befriend it, right? So instead of getting mad at yourself for these mom rage moments, really instead getting curious and going, oh, I wonder why that just happened, you know? And also see these moments, whether they are the mom rage moment happens with you and your children or it happens with you and your partner, that the repair is the most important part, right? And this is something that this generation, this conscious parenting and these gentle, respectful parenting are really big on, which is taking accountability that it happened, acknowledging it, saying we're sorry, saying I'm here for you. What was that like for you? I don't want to do this again. These are some things mom's gonna work on. But the repair is the most important part. And I'm totally going off on a tangent right now, and I'm sorry. But the repair, and then also remembering that when you make mistakes, you're teaching your children it's okay not to be perfect too. And I think that's really, really important, because what we don't want is to attempt to be these perfect mothers that then are contributing to raising perfect children, because we want our kids to mess up. We want them to learn what it means to be human. But that comes in us modeling that for ourselves and for them. That was a very long-winded answer. I'm sorry. Okay. Remember that it's not a me problem, it's a we problem, right? So I can't remember who said it, but when you said you were thinking about the collective experience of mom rage, that's right? This isn't, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me. Like I'm failing, I can't do it all. This is patriarchal normative motherhood at play. So this is a we problem. So what do we do now? Sorry, I have to keep moving the chat. Okay. So the goal is not to learn how to cope with, survive, or even thrive within patriarchal normative motherhood, but the hope is to defy and resist it altogether. So this requires, in my opinion, education, right? So it's this workshop, but it's a lot more. I think mothers need words to be able to describe their experience. When you can hopefully walk away from this and start to see and name for yourself, oh, look at that, I had a mom rage moment. That's because of, patriarchal norm, you could just say, that's because of the patriarchy, or that's because of motherhood. But when you begin to have words in which you can talk about your experience, I think that's a game changer for so many of us. It also, I think, helps us to begin externalizing a lot of these beliefs, as well as reminding us that it isn't a me problem, but a we problem. You also need other like-minded mothers to go on this journey with you, because if you are home alone attempting to resist motherhood, it will become incredibly lonely. You will likely doubt yourself. It will become so hard because you are doing something that is countercultural, right? Patriarchal normative motherhood begs of us to comply. It wants us to follow the rules and do what's expected of us. It benefits out of that. The capitalistic society benefits from us relying on the experts because we'll spend so much money. So it really does require that you have a lot of courage and you make a commitment. And again, I'll bring it back to mothers need other mothers. They absolutely do. And attempting to resist patriarchal normative motherhood is no different. I think you need them that much more. So then let's see, we are almost done. So for me personally, if you were interested in learning any more about this, my Becoming Mama program is my most favorite offering. And we just dive deep more into the concepts of matrescence and patriarchal motherhood. And that concludes my presentation. So if anyone has any thoughts or questions, I am so grateful for all of you and really excited about the chat because I think that allowed for such honest conversation.
Amazing. Maybe stop sharing now so that we can face. I don't know what happened to my sharing thing. Gallery. There we go. Mommy, so good to see you here. I know that a lot of you joined at a later stage and I didn't see you coming in, but super happy to see you here. We have 10 more minutes in which you are welcome to share your reflections maybe on what you've learned or things that stood out for you, or maybe ask questions about the practical ways. That would be my question. What are the first steps that we take? What are the things that I guess it's very individual because it, whatever comes up for you, I guess, but what would be your recommendations or thoughts?
Great question. Great question. So I think that, like you said, it's super individual and really unique to each one of us. I think that education, honestly, is the first piece. I think that really understanding more of these concepts and these terms, understanding intensive mothering, understanding patriarchal motherhood, the good mother myth. I think this was a fantastic start. And quite honestly, this might be enough for some of you to really feel like you're empowered now to make changes for yourself. I think the education is number one. And finding other moms. Like if in this Zoom right now, like there are 3 of you, that know each other that are like, oh my goodness, like, wow, I see my experience now so differently. I want to begin to mother in a more empowered way, which is called empowered mothering. If I want to do that, I need to have other moms to do that with me. And so if you go down that avenue, you're really doing a lot of maybe value clarifying exercises. So honing in on what are your practice values. So what do you, in your mothering work, what do you really value, right? Is it sitting down and spending close time with your children? Is it, breastfeeding your child until they're X amount of years? Is it being the one that makes homemade dinners every night? So in the practical values, what do you value? What in that are you doing because that's something you want to do versus you think you should do? That's what a good mother would do. So you're working at really tweezing apart the shoulds that you mother within and your values. And then also really looking at what your maternal values are, right? So if you want to be a warm and cozy mom emotionally for your children, if you want to and deeply value adventure and curiosity, or if you value, there's so many independence, even like whatever that might look like. Again, then you're looking at your why. Is this because I should value these things or because I want to value them? So I think doing a values clarifying exercise like that can be really helpful too.
I love that. That's really good. It's like a mood board of your mothering kind of thing,
Perfect. Yep.
We have a question there, and I was actually going to ask exactly the same. It would be so great to have a list of resources, whether that be research or books or, maybe even Instagram accounts. I don't know, but where we can learn more about mother wound is this specific question, and intergenerational tensions around motherhood as well. That would be a really good one. I think just a list of resources. Where do we start? What are the first books or resources that help us explore this topic?
Most definitely. Maybe that's something I can put together an email to you, so that we can you have something tangible to hand out. For my own experience, when I first started in this space, I bought so many academic journals, and that's where I started to uncover these concepts. So I don't really see them yet in a lot of hot selling books that are out there. Mom Rage by Nina Dubin is one. is one book that's more like on the hot list of books to read if you want it and we're curious about that. But yeah, if you don't mind, I would love to just be more intentional about what I share and put some thoughts together for you for sure.
And then mummies, please, contact me and I'll be happy to share the email with you so that you can continue your research and so on. So the other question that came up for me is as well, it's all well and good that I'm really, I've learned so much here in this talk and I want to put something into practice. But how do I go about getting the support from people around me? Because I can't be this lone warrior who is going down this one path, but then everything around me, everyone around me throws obstacles in my path. So,
I mean, I think you just named the reality of it. Unfortunately, I wish I had something beautiful and deep to share, but I think, that's really very honest, is that it is super, super hard. I think one thing I just did a newsletter on and posted on Instagram is that burnout is definitely a symptom of patriarchal normative motherhood, but burnout is also a symptom of defying it. And I think that that's really important and why you need to have other mothers, because educating your partner on these concepts, especially if you have a partner that falls more into the traditional gender roles, is going to be an incredibly uphill battle. Again, I think education can go a long way, even in educating, your own mom and being like, Mom, did you know that the good mother myth is real and you had your own version, and asking her, what did it mean to you, Mom, to be a good mother? Right. And getting her curious about it. And, for your partner, maybe saying, hey, what are the beliefs you have about yourself about what it means to be a good dad or a good mom? Right. And exploring, trying to increase their buy-in a little bit for it. But I think you're right. There will be obstacles and there will be barriers, and it's why you need to have other moms that you can say, today was really hard and this conversation I had didn't go well and I'm feeling stuck and I kind of want to quit and just fall back in line.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have anything more hopeful.
That's great, but that in itself is good advice, I think, to start the conversations and to just share what we're going through and what we are even just reflecting on or reminiscing about, or I don't know what, to share that with our partners as well. Hopefully they will be open to exploring this with you, because they're in the same boat in a way. They are thrown into a new role as well. And they need to define for themselves too, is what do I want for me and how do we want this parenting to work as a team, right? You're not alone in this. This should be a team of people working together. So I think just kickstarting the conversations. We have someone suggesting a book club, which I love. I can't click on the link right now, but
that's brilliant. And if anyone wants, so I mentioned Andrea O'Reilly in my talk. She is the kind of creator and the founder of the whole academic field of motherhood studies, as well as the thought leader, the one who came up with matricentric feminism, which is a mother-centered intersectional understanding of feminism. She and I are having a book club, ironically. I don't know if the time will work for Singapore, but it might. I think it's at 7:30 at night here, which would be 7:30 in the morning, but that's not too crazy. Maybe. But you'd get access to her. So you would learn directly from her, and you would be reading books that are not journals. They are more like fiction, or I never know, nonfiction, fiction books. So if you're interested in that, I can send that along as well.
That would be amazing. Absolutely. For some people to join that book club. Amazing. And now we're at the end of our time, which is sad. It always goes so quickly. Like your last one, this was really informative. I really enjoyed learning from you. I hope you mummies enjoyed it too. How can moms contact you? Are you more of an Instagram? Your Mama's Modern Village is obviously out there as an Instagram account. Do you prefer people to contact you like that, or via email, or via WhatsApp, or what is your poison?
I'm so all over the place with Instagram. I feel like I have a love-hate relationship. So you can definitely message me on there if you're interested in talking to me. I will get it. It might just be a little bit slower. But feel free to sign up for my newsletter on my website, because I do a lot of educating through my newsletter. So that's one way definitely of staying in touch with me. And then my email is chelsea@mamasmodernvillage.com. But my whole hope is that I'm continuing to educate. So you can find some of that on Instagram, most definitely, if that's most accessible to you.
Amazing. Sounds really great. Thank you, mummies, for joining us. We have lots of moms thanking you as well. They found it really informative. And I hope to see you all next Wednesday. And Chelsea, we have to talk about the mom rage topic, because I really get that in the diary for later in the year.
That sounds great.
So much for being here today. And I hope you get a good rest now.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate all of you for being here. And thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Okay. Bye-bye, Chelsea. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.